Yes guys, welcome back to the channel. I've had two aspiring apprentices ask me questions. The first being, what exactly did you do to acquire an apprenticeship? And the second was, can you provide a step-by-step process from preparation and application until the day start? So this video is going to be talking about that. Just before we get into that, you can head to my website where there'll be resources to help you apply for apprenticeships. There'll be a bit of a story on what apprentices actually do. And there's also some frequently asked questions that I've answered on there. So you can view all that and then come back to this video and learn exactly what you need to do to get an apprenticeship. The first and most important thing is to be well prepared and to have done a good amount of research into the role that you are interested in and also the company that you're interested in. An example of this is not to research things like the history or the timeline of companies or the CEO of a company or just some recent news. What you want to research is something that's relevant to your interests and also relevant to the role that you're applying to. So for example, the software engineering degree apprenticeship, I researched my company by going onto their website and looking at their news articles. And I found out that my company was the first company to utilize blockchain in the supply chain a few years ago. And this was an interest of mine, and this is what brought me to be a software engineer. So I was able to tell that story in an interview and convince my manager that this was valuable knowledge that I knew, and also that I had an interest outside of I'm going to get paid and work a job. I actually had an interest in the technology. I had a creative mindset or ambitious mindset to use technology, and I could see this and relate to this type of thing with the company and differentiate myself to other applicants. And that leads on to the application. So you need a very concise CV and cover letter. CV probably 1, maximum 2 pages, cover letter 1 page. You've done your research, you've got your academic background and maybe some work experiences or internships. Yeah, so you just prepare a CV and cover letter. Again, on my website, there's resources for this. But yeah, very concise on what your skills are, how they're relevant to the job, and that should be pretty simple. You just go on their website, fill in the information, provide the files, click send, and wait for a reply. Should you be successful in your application with your CV and cover letter, the first step is usually psychometric tests. This will be maths tests or some sort of problem solving test. Again, on my website, there's a link to a psychometric test website which has like hundreds of tests for you to practice, and you can't predict which ones are going to come up. So I know you might ask, which ones do I do? But I guess you just have to try a bunch of them. So you've passed the psychometric tests, and now you'll probably be invited to an interview in person or online. And this would be an assessment center where you might have more tests and also a presentation to your manager and maybe the other people in the room, or some group tasks. These type of assessment centers and interviews have had horror stories and they can be daunting. But to be honest, my advice to you would be that you shouldn't go into these interviews with a mindset that you're competing against the people you're with, because to even get to that point, you've been filtered through probably thousands, hundreds or thousands of applicants. So at that point, there might be 10 of you and they actually have 10 spots in the company. They just want to hire the people in the room. So the competing just makes no sense. What you should do is try and show that you're a good team worker. You empower your teammates. So if someone has a particular skill, you let them have the chance to show that skill and you empower them to be like, right, you do this because you're really good at that. I will do this because I'm really good at this. Or I'm not so good at this. Can someone else take it? And knowing your weaknesses and your strengths, that will be signs of someone who is self-aware and also knows how to collaborate with other individuals. Let's say everything's gone well now. That's usually it. You get your offer. So once you've got your offer, you might have more than one offer if you're very lucky. Yeah, just pick whichever company aligns with you. And you know what? I didn't actually have this on the notes, but I think this is very important. So when considering your company, you might have a scenario where you have maybe Facebook has offered you a role, or Meta, and Mercedes has offered you a role. The type of work that you do in each company could be very different. You might be focused on largely user applications in the Facebook side, working on Instagram posts or messages, or if there's a business on Instagram, having sales managed properly and transactions managed properly on their website. That would be a bit different to maybe if you worked at Mercedes and you were working on hardware-based solutions. You might be writing software that needs to be embedded into like an ECU component, and this would require you to work with like a physical computing parts and to be in the office. Not saying the work from home scenario is something you're concerned about, but that's something to consider. Also, are you good at hardware? Is that something you're interested in? That's something to ask yourself. You'll be more likely to work with that in Mercedes than you would in Meta. The same thing can be said for cybersecurity and other things. You might think that type of job is exciting, but I know people say cybersecurity is not as exciting as what people think in terms of like interesting problems. It might just be governance and data protection type of things. But anyway, that's for another video. So yeah, when you have multiple offers or even one offer, be careful what company you're going to. Consider how that company affects your day-to-day job, or how that company's main products affect your day-to-day job. And just make sure that you're thinking carefully about which company you're actually joining. And that leads on to, yeah, once you've accepted your offer, what do you do? So again, I think the main thing here is just your accommodation, usually, because you have to move to go work at that company. As a degree apprentice or an apprentice of some form, you're not considered to be a full-time student, you're considered to be part-time. That means it's difficult to find accommodation that is student-based, and usually the company doesn't provide you accommodation as a student. You have to find your own shared accommodation, or you can find private accommodation if you can afford it. You know, whichever one suits you. There's resources for that on my website. Otherwise, you'll also need to meet your team. So you usually go in for like a day or something, and your manager's there. Maybe someone from your team will be saying, hello, you know, my name is so-and-so, this is my role, I'll be your mentor. Potentially. I didn't have a mentor, but you know, you might get that if you're lucky. And you'll get all your equipment, i.e. laptop and, you know, access card, blah, blah, blah. Get a tour of the headquarters or whatever building you'll be working at. And yeah, it's largely nice once you've got your offer. It's just pretty simple, getting yourself set up to work in that space or from home. Yeah, and then finally, you will have your official induction and you'll start work. So your official induction will be going to university, or having a week where they're explaining to you, right, this is how university is going to look like. You're going to have maybe weekly blocks of education, or you'll have maybe 3-day blocks or something like that. You'll be assessed in this way, and also you'll get to know some other apprentices that you might never see again, just like in uni when you have Freshers Week and you meet people you never see again for the rest of your course. So hopefully that was clear. Comment any questions you want to know, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.